The sky was gray that morning, the kind of dull, heavy gray that made the world look like it had forgotten color. A cold wind swept through the small cemetery on the outskirts of the city, bending the tall grass and stirring the dried leaves that lay scattered over the graves. A woman in a worn gray coat and faded scarf walked slowly between the rows of tombstones. In her hands, she carried a small bundle of white lilies, the same kind she always brought. Their stems were wrapped in brown paper, slightly damp from the mist. Her name was Lila Rowan, and though her life had been full of struggles, there was a quiet strength in her eyes. She worked long hours cleaning offices, often skipping meals so she could afford medicine for her son. But no matter how hard the week was, she never missed her Sunday visit. She stopped in front of a simple gravestone, brushed off the wet leaves, and read the name engraved there as she always did. Greater than Emily Hart, 1989-2023. Beloved wife and mother, forever in our hearts. Lila knelt and placed the lilies carefully at the base of the stone. For a moment, she just sat there, staring at the name, her breath misting in the cold air. "You don't know me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "But I think about you every day." 2 years ago, on a night full of flashing lights and sirens, Lila's 6-year-old son, Lucas, had been rushed to the hospital. His heart had failed. The doctors said there was almost no time. Then, miraculously, a donor heart became available. A woman had died in a car crash that same night. Her name was Emily Hart. Lila never knew her, but that name was now carved into her heart forever. After the surgery, when Lucas woke up smiling weakly and whispered, "Mom," Lila had promised herself she'd thank the woman who made that moment possible. And so, she began coming here every Sunday, to bring flowers, to pray, to whisper her gratitude into the still morning air. "Thank you," she said softly, touching the cold stone. "Your heart still beats. It laughs. It runs. It dreams." A sudden gust of wind rustled the trees. The cemetery was silent except for the sound of footsteps approaching behind her. Heavy, deliberate, not the kind of steps that came to mourn quietly, but the kind that carried purpose. Lila turned slowly. A man stood a few meters away, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark overcoat that looked expensive even from a distance. His hair was perfectly kept, but his eyes, dark and tired, betrayed sleepless nights. In his hand, he held a bouquet of red roses. For a moment, they just looked at each other, the silence between them as heavy as the gray sky above. Finally, he spoke, his voice low but firm. "Excuse me, I noticed you come here often." Lila froze, unsure how to respond. Yes, I just." The man stepped closer, his gaze fixed on the flowers she'd brought. "This is my wife's grave," he said quietly. "Emily Hart." Her breath caught. "I see," she whispered. "I'm sorry if I disturbed you." He frowned slightly, confused rather than angry. "No, I just don't understand why a stranger brings flowers every week." Lila swallowed hard, her hands trembling as she clutched the hem of her coat. "Because she saved my son's life." He blinked, his expression changing from confusion to shock. "What?" "She was the donor," Lila said, her voice barely audible. "Your wife." Her heart beats in my son's chest. For a long time, neither spoke. The man's eyes darted from the grave to Lila, as if trying to grasp the impossible weight of what she'd said. When he finally spoke, his voice was cracked and trembling. "I'm Ethan Hart." Ethan Hart stood in silence for a long moment after Lila spoke, the world seeming to stop around them. His hand tightened around the roses until a thorn pricked his palm, drawing a small drop of blood, but he didn't notice. All this time, he had come here believing Emily's story had ended beneath this stone. That her kindness, her laughter, her warmth had been buried forever. But now, standing in front of this fragile woman with trembling hands and eyes full of gratitude, Ethan realized, Emily's heart still lived. He swallowed hard. "You're saying, my wife's heart?" Lila nodded softly. "Beats in my son's chest. She saved him." Ethan's voice cracked. "I didn't even know who received it. The hospital never told me. I used to wonder every night if the person who got her heart was living well. If she'd be proud of what her gift had done." Lila looked down, tears glistening. She gave him everything. He's 9 now. He runs. He laughs. He lives because of her. A silence fell between them, not awkward, but sacred. The kind of silence where grief meets grace. Finally, Ethan asked quietly, "Can I meet him?" Lila hesitated. She didn't know this man. Not really. He was powerful, intimidating, dressed like someone from another world. But in his eyes, she saw something that made her nod. A pain that mirrored her own. "Yes," she said, "tomorrow. At the park. The next day, the park was alive with the laughter of children. Autumn leaves swirled through the air, catching sunlight like flickers of gold. Ethan arrived early, dressed simply this time. No suit, no polished shoes. Just a man clutching a paper bag of fresh-baked cookies, nervous in a way he hadn't been since his wedding day. Then he saw them. Lila was sitting on a bench beneath a large oak tree, her coat patched at the elbow. Beside her, a little boy ran through the grass, chasing a red ball. His laughter rang through the air, bright, warm, and achingly familiar. Ethan froze. His chest tightened. The boy's smile, that same radiant, dimpled grin, was Emily's. "Lucas," Lila called, smiling, "come here, sweetheart." The boy turned, saw Ethan, and trotted over curiously. "Hi," he said cheerfully. "Are you Mommy's friend?" Ethan's throat went dry. He crouched down, forcing a smile. "Yeah," he said softly. "You could say that." Lucas tilted his head. "Mom says I have a special heart. An angel heart." Ethan felt his eyes sting. He nodded, barely able to speak. "She's right," he whispered. "And that angel loved you very much, even before she knew you." The boy smiled proudly, tapping his chest. "Then I'll take good care of it." Lila turned away, tears slipping down her cheeks. Ethan reached out gently, brushing his hand against Lucas's shoulder, as if afraid he might shatter this miracle by touching it. "Thank you," Ethan whispered, his voice breaking, "for letting me meet him. I didn't realize how much I needed this." Lila looked at him quietly. "Neither did I." Weeks passed. Ethan began visiting the park often. Sometimes with coffee, sometimes with small gifts for Lucas, toy cars, books, or hot chocolate on cold mornings. He helped Lila too, quietly, without pity. He arranged a better job for her at one of his company's offices, though she only found out later. "You deserved a chance," he told her simply. And somewhere between shared memories and new beginnings, grief turned into something gentler, something like hope. One Sunday morning, they stood together once again at Emily's grave. This time, there were 3 sets of flowers. White lilies from Lila, red roses from Ethan, and a single yellow daisy from Lucas, who had picked it himself. Lucas knelt, placing his flower on the stone. "Mom says you're my angel," he whispered. "Thank you for my heart." Ethan closed his eyes. His hand found Lila's, a simple touch, yet full of unspoken emotion. "She would have loved him," Ethan murmured. "I think she already does," Lila said softly. They stood there in the quiet morning, surrounded by wind and sunlight and the soft rustle of leaves. And for the first time in 2 years, Ethan felt peace, because Emily's heart was still beating. Not just in Lucas's chest, but in the love that had somehow brought 2 broken souls together. It wasn't a love that replaced the past. It was the kind that healed it. From then on, every Sunday, they came together, Lila, Ethan, and Lucas, bringing flowers, stories, and laughter. And beneath the gray stone, where 2 lives once ended, a new one had begun. Lila nodded softly. Lila Rowan. The wind stirred again, carrying the scent of lilies and roses through the still air. And for the first time in 2 years, 2 people who had loved the same heart, in different ways, for different reasons, stood together at the same grave.